Hello and welcome back. Today, we're diving into something that truly defines British culture: queuing. Yes, standing in line, waiting patiently, and silently judging those who don't follow the unspoken rules.
Ah, the queue. It's more than just waiting your turn. It's a way of life, a sacred social contract that keeps us civilized.
Exactly, there's an unspoken etiquette: no cutting, no standing too close, and certainly no unnecessary small talk.
Unless, of course, the queue is moving painfully slow, then a well-placed sigh or an eye-roll exchange is perfectly acceptable.
And let's be honest, nothing unites British people more than collectively complaining about a queue that isn't moving.
But here's the thing: while we might moan about it, we'd be absolutely horrified if someone tried to jump the queue. That's social chaos.
Oh, it's a serious offence. The death stares alone are enough to send a queue jumper straight to the back in shame.
And don't get me started on when a new till opens, and suddenly you have to figure out who's next without disrupting the natural order.
That moment of hesitation when everyone glances at each other, waiting for someone to make the first move. It's the ultimate test of British politeness.
Honestly, I think we could solve half the world's problems if everyone just mastered the British queue.
Absolutely. You see, queuing isn't just about standing in line, it's about fairness, patience, and, most importantly, maintaining social order. It's almost like an unspoken dance that every British person just knows how to do.
And if you don't, well, you'll learn soon enough. There's a silent system of peer pressure that will make you fall in line, literally.
Oh, for sure. And here's a funny thing: have you ever noticed how British people love forming a queue, even when they don't have to?
Yes, I've seen people instinctively queue for something without even knowing what they're waiting for. It's like an automatic response.
Exactly. It's almost like a sense of duty. If we see a crowd gathering, we assume there must be something worth waiting for.
And let's not forget the airport queue's pure chaos if you don't know the rules. The unwritten hierarchy of check-in lines, security queues, and boarding gates. It's an art.
Oh, absolutely. And you know you're dealing with a true Brit when they strategically plan their position in the queue. Not too eager at the front, but definitely not the last one on the plane either.
And the supermarket self-checkout queue, that's a battlefield. You need to calculate speed, efficiency, and whether the person in front of you looks like they actually know how to use the machine.
Oh, and let's not forget about the queue dilemma when you're at the pub. No actual lines, just a mysterious system where you must make eye contact with the bartender and hope they acknowledge you in the right order.
It's an advanced skill, honestly. You don't ask who's next. You just know. It's about reading the room, understanding body language, and never, ever being pushy.
And if you accidentally get served before someone who was there first, that's a mortifying British nightmare. You'll probably end up apologizing and insisting they go before you.
Honestly, we take queuing so seriously. It's practically a national sport.
And speaking of queues, there's one golden rule: never, ever cut in line. It's practically a criminal offence in British culture.
Oh, absolutely. Even if someone accidentally steps out of line for a moment, there's an unspoken expectation that they must return to their rightful place. Otherwise, the glares, the subtle sighs, the polite but pointed "excuse me, I think I was here first," it's brutal.
And that's the thing: British people won't usually confront you outright. They won't cause a scene. But they will let you know you've committed a social sin through passive-aggressive means.
The dramatic sigh is a classic. The louder the sigh, the greater the offence.
And let's not forget the ultimate punishment: the tut. A well-timed tut from an older lady behind you? That's the British way of saying, you should be ashamed of yourself.
Oh, and the power of a disappointed head shake. That's enough to ruin your entire day.
Now, let's talk about the queue hierarchy. Because not all queues are created equal.
That's true. The bus queue, for example, is a serious business. People will instinctively arrange themselves in the order they arrived, and if someone tries to jump ahead, there will be silent outrage.
And then there's the train queue. Now, this one is more chaotic because it's a mix of seasoned commuters and confused tourists. The regulars know exactly where to stand for the best chance at a seat, while tourists often get in the way.
It's a battle of patience versus position. And then there's the worst queue experience of all: trying to get out of a crowded tube station during rush hour.
Oh no, the dreaded escalator queue. Stand on the right, walk on the left, that's the rule. And if you break it, if you just stand there blocking the left side, You'll hear at least one Londoner mutter unbelievable under their breath.
And let's not forget festivals or concerts where queuing just turns into a free-for-all. It's the only time Brits abandon their orderly nature.
True, the moment it's standing room only, all baits are off. People who'd normally be queuing politely for a coffee will suddenly be pushing their way to the front of a crowd like seasoned warriors.
And yet, at the end of the day, no matter how chaotic things get, there's one universal British truth: we will always respect a good queue.
And you know what's fascinating? Even abroad, Brits still try to queue.
Oh, absolutely. You could drop a group of Brits in the middle of a busy market in Thailand, and within minutes, they'd naturally form a queue while everyone else is just pushing forward.
It's like an instinct. If there's even the suggestion of a line, we'll stand in it. I once saw a group of British tourists queuing in front of what they thought was a ticket counter, but it turned out to be just a blank wall.
That is peak British behaviour.
And speaking of queuing abroad, one of the biggest culture shocks for Brits is when they go somewhere where queuing just isn't a thing.
Oh, it's a nightmare. You go to a bar, and instead of a nice orderly line, it's just a chaotic mob of people waving money at the bartender. And we're just standing there, awkwardly waiting our turn, getting more and more stressed.
You can feel the internal panic rising. Like, what do I do? Do I just push forward? No, that feels wrong. But if I don't, I'll be here forever.
And then you realize that in some countries, confidence gets you served first. The louder and more assertive you are, the faster you get your drink.
Which is the opposite of British culture, where being too assertive at a bar is practically a social crime.
Yeah, there's an unspoken rule: catch the bartender's eye just enough so they know you're waiting, but not so much that you seem rude.
It's a delicate balance. Look too eager, and you seem pushy. Wait too long, and you'll be there all night.
And when you do finally get served, you have to do the polite nod of acknowledgement to the people who were waiting before you.
Exactly, a little nod that says, I know you were here too. This is fair.
And if you accidentally get served before someone who was waiting longer, oh, the guilt. You have to do that awkward half-turn like, oh no, I didn't mean to jump the queue.
And if you're a truly honourable Brit, sometimes you even offer your turn back. Oh, no, you were first.
But here's the funniest thing about British queuing culture sometimes. Even when there's no need to queue, we still do it.
Oh, 100%. Like at bus stops with no set queuing system, Brits will just naturally arrange themselves in the correct order.
Or when a new shop opens and there's a bit of a crowd outside, someone will take the initiative to start a line, and within minutes, everyone else will just fall in.
And if there's any confusion, people will politely ask, sorry, is this the queue? Just to make sure they're not committing a social faux pas.
Honestly, queuing is our national sport. Forget football, this is where Brits really shine.
And we'll judge anyone who doesn't respect the sacred rules of the queue?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, if someone tries to skip the queue, you can feel the collective rage building.
But, of course, because we're British, we won't actually say anything directly.
No, that would be far too confrontational. Instead, we'll just do the passive-aggressive tut or the dramatic exhale.
Or even better, the silent but deadly stare.
Oh, the stare is a classic. It's that mix of disappointment and judgment. A look that says, I see you, and I know what you've done, and I hope you feel very bad about it.
And the best part, half the time, the queue jumper will eventually feel the weight of all those stares and just awkwardly shuffle to the back, pretending it was all a mistake.
Exactly. They'll suddenly look at their phone, as if they just got an urgent text that requires them to be somewhere else immediately.
Or they'll do that awkward, oh, sorry, I didn't realise, and pretend they totally weren't just trying to be cheeky.
And we, as Brits, will pretend to accept their apology while secretly never forgetting their betrayal.
Oh, it sticks with you. You could be on holiday, relaxing by a pool, and suddenly remember that one person who cut in front of you at Tesco 3 years ago, and you'll still feel a little annoyed.
It's just built into us. Like, queuing isn't just a social norm, it's a moral code.
It really is. And it's not just in person, either. Have you ever been in an online queue for concert tickets?
Oh, don't get me started. The stress of watching that little progress bar inch forward, praying you don't get kicked out of the system.
And then there's that one person who somehow gets through instantly and posts on social media like, oh my God, got my tickets, that was easy.
That person is the enemy.
Absolutely, because how? How did they manage that while the rest of us are still stuck in queue position for 1829?
I swear, those people have some sort of secret trick. Like, do they have faster Wi-Fi? A direct line to Ticketmaster? A deal with the devil?
Whatever it is, it's unfair.
And let's not forget airport queues. Security, passport control, just an endless series of lines.
And yet, somehow, there's always one person who seems baffled by the entire process.
You mean the person who waits until the very last second to take off their belt and empty their pockets?
Exactly, like, mate, we've all been standing in this queue for ages. You had plenty of time to get ready.
And then they act shocked when they beep going through the scanner.
Oh, is it my belt? Yes, it's your belt.
Meanwhile, the seasoned travelers have already got their liquids in a clear bag, shoes off, laptop out. It's like a well-rehearsed military operation.
Honestly, some people just don't respect the flow of the queue.
And when that happens, you just know there's a Brit somewhere, tutting under their breath.
Because queuing isn't just a thing we do, it's part of our national identity.
And let's talk about the ultimate test of queuing patience, the self-checkout queue at the supermarket.
Oh no, don't even get me started. The stress of it all.
You've got two types of people in that queue. The ones who fly through it like they work there, and the ones who seem to be operating the machine for the first time in their lives.
And the machine itself, it's like it knows when you're in a hurry.
Unexpected item in bagging area.
Every time, even when there's literally nothing unexpected in the bagging area.
And then you have to wait for an assistant to come over, scan their little card, and tap a few buttons like they're performing high-tech surgery.
Meanwhile, the queue behind you is growing, and you can feel the pressure.
Oh, absolutely. And there's always that person who stands just a little too close, breathing down your neck like their groceries are somehow more urgent than yours.
And if you dare to fumble scanning an item, you can sense the collective sigh of disappointment from everyone behind you.
The unspoken rule is, if you can't scan at lightning speed, just go to a staff till.
Exactly, but let's not forget another queue-related nightmare, the bus stop.
Ah, the silent hierarchy of the bus queue.
Oh yes, it's not just a line, it's a social contract.
There's an order, even if there aren't any physical barriers. Everyone knows who was there first.
And woe betide the person who ignores this sacred order.
Oh, they'll try to act casual, hovering near the front, pretending they've been there all along.
But the moment the bus arrives, you'll see the real queue form, and justice will be served.
That's right, if someone dares to push ahead. You can be sure a chorus of tuts and passive-aggressive glances will let them know they've committed an unforgivable sin.
And the worst part, when the bus finally arrives, and the driver just waves everyone on at once, ignoring the carefully structured queue.
Chaos. It's like all our hard work has been for nothing.
That's when you see true British outrage. People will grumble under their breath for the entire journey.
And then when someone takes 2 seats when the bus is full.
Oh, now that's a whole other crime.
Bags don't need seats, mate. People need seats.
Exactly. And yet, there's always someone who pretends not to notice that the bus is packed.
The classic avoid eye contact at all costs move.
Or the fake I didn't realize, when asked to move their bag.
But deep down, we know they knew.
Oh, they knew.
And let's not forget the ultimate test of British patience, the park queues.
Oh no, the worst.
Hours of waiting, shuffling forward inch by inch, only to see people swan past in the fast-track lane.
I swear, nothing makes you question your life choices more than watching people zoom past while you're stuck in the sun with a half-melted ice cream.
And the biggest betrayal, when the sign says 30-minute wait, but it's actually an hour and a half.
Lies.
Deception.
But do we complain? No, we just suffer in silence, maybe muttering a sarcastic, well, this is moving quickly, isn't it?
And that's how you know you're British.
And that's how you know you're British. You don't complain outright. You just make a passive-aggressive comment loud enough for others to hear, but quiet enough to avoid confrontation.
Exactly. It's an art form, really.
Speaking of which, let's not forget the pub queue.
Oh yes. Now, this is a queue with no structure at all, but somehow, everyone knows the order.
You walk up to the bar, make eye contact with the bartender, and wait your turn.
No pushing, no shoving, just a silent agreement that they know who's next.
And if they don't, oh, that's when the real British passive aggression comes out.
The hard stare at the person who got served before you, the subtle shake of the head, the quiet "I was here first" muttered under your breath.
But you'd never actually say anything.
Of course not. That would be rude.
But the best thing about a British queue, When everyone collectively agrees that something is taking too long, and you all start bonding over it.
Oh, the shared suffering. That's peak Britishness.
Been here a while, haven't we?
Could walked home by now.
Don't worry, we'll get there eventually.
And suddenly, strangers become allies.
United by nothing more than a terrible queuing experience.
And that, my friends, is what makes us truly British.
Right, I think we've complained enough for one day.
Yep, but let's be honest. We'll probably be moaning about another queue by tomorrow.
Oh, definitely. But until then, stay patient, stay polite, and never skip the queue.
See you next time.
Cheers!